Today's conversation is about leadership, not trends, not tools, but the human work of leading when everything around us is changing so fast. Leaders today are under more pressure than ever. Expectations are higher, time is tighter, and the pace of change doesn't seem to slow down. And yet, we still ask leaders to build trust, create engagement, and help people grow. My guest today, Hilda Gan, has spent her career helping leaders to do exactly that: build strong, healthy, people centered workplaces, even as organizations scale and evolve. In today's conversation, we explore what high touch leadership really looks like today, where leaders are struggling, and what must remain non negotiable as new ways of working emerge. Hilda brings a grounded, deeply human perspective to leadership, and I am super excited to unpack what that means for leaders who are navigating change right now, today. Hilda, welcome to Tides.
Thank you, Shveta, for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise, I am so in awe of your leadership journey, Hilda. You've set up your own business and you've been advising organizations who are known for strong cultures. From your lived experience and what you have observed in the past, what leadership behaviors matter most in creating those healthy, engaged workplaces?
I think it starts from a perspective where leaders want to make a difference. Leaders are people who go beyond the novice's interpretation of leadership in terms of managing staff, making sure projects, clients, and staff are doing what they need to do to make the outcome a positive experience, right? And a good leader goes beyond managing, and they go and nurture and guide and support and create an atmosphere that almost becomes motivational in its leadership and inspirational in its leadership approach.
That is so powerful. And if we layer in the context of the application of that true leadership that you speak about in today's context, what does the leadership reality look like? I know we've often used terms like leaders have to operate in the VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I feel like today's world is not just VUCA, it's VUCA on steroids. And this is where I feel like many leaders are struggling. What's your sense?
VUCA is it's a military term, right? Or it's based in military boot camp mentality. So there needs to be an element of that kind of high touch and the connection with people. So it's not just mentality. So I think so many conversations can be tense and awkward when trust is not developed, right? But if you create an environment that is about building relationships, building trust, then those conversations become less awkward, less difficult, because when you create a trusting relationship, whether it's at work or in your everyday non-working environment, you create the benefit of a doubt. I will trust you. I will believe in what you're telling me, so that I'm not going to second guess you. I'm not going to think you have a negative purpose or you're out to get me, right? And we see that time and time again. When people create a trusting relationship, they build that element of trust. So I think this is one of the key things, is to build the trusting relationship, to have a set of values that honors a we mentality, right? When so many organizations where there is this divisiveness, the language, the communication is all about us versus them. You know, they think that, well, I don't trust them, right? But when we do this together, when we have pride for what we do, the we team can accomplish more than the bickering, divisive us versus them conversations. I don't know how many times I've had these conversations in the closed doors where people will use the us versus them mentality. And then the laughter when we talk about a we mentality and let's do this together. What do you think we should do? Right? And that really is the underpinning of creating more of a human experience that people have.
And it seems like trust and building that relationship and connectedness are timeless. Like without those, we don't have a strong foothold as a leadership team to change, evolve, or even continue as is. Do you feel that the pressure of the world today is is like so high that there's a higher chance of leadership teams and people who are in leadership roles to not pay attention to building trust and relationship and credibility with members and just focus on the business? Where I'm going with this is trust making takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, right?
Well, I was talking to one of my clients last night. She says, "Yeah, I'm so happy that I'm spending time with my staff member. She's just beginning to shine now. Like she's taking on more responsibility, and I can see the energy and the excitement in her. And she's going to really work out." So I could hear this manager beaming. Well, she's a CEO. I could hear her beaming with pride. And then she said, "Takes a lot of work, Hilda. Takes a lot of work." I'm going. And then I sort of stepped back and I said, I think it's worth it. You just brought this person on a year ago, things happen, and now you're seeing the fruits of your labor, right? Of spending that time. And believe me, it'll get easier because you've been trying to teach her kind of the ways that your expectations are, the ways you want to do things. And once you get on a roll, it's easier and easier and easier because you know what to expect from your boss, and your boss knows what to expect from you. And that communication, that sense of forgiving and understanding. Well, it's 5:00. Why haven't they done that? Oh, it's 5:00. It's not like them to do that. Well, I'm sure they'll get back to me later, right? So there's that benefit of a doubt when you create that trust. It's so hard to earn, but it can be gone like that. You say something and it's gone. It's just gone. So yes, I think COVID really impacted the world. That's an obvious statement. But what it did was it uncovered the fundamental flaw that we have with our leadership. Promote managers, people who want to be a manager. But what do? We promote them because they were technically sound. They managed the project well. So let's promote them. If they're not that good at people skills, if they yell at people and make them feel terrible, it's okay. They'll learn or they'll never learn, right? And what happened during COVID is we uncovered the fact that some people never had people leadership mindset mentality. People never got training for that. And now we are working remotely. And you can't see that person and walk down and check and look at that. Maybe they're a little bit stressed today. They look like they're struggling. If you saw that, maybe you'd stop in, but you don't. So you don't spend the time. You're so busy focused on the doing, the managing, not the leadership part, that you don't even know how that person's feeling. And in those early days, if people remember, single people were living in high rises and they never saw the light of day. They just stayed in their high rise. They didn't go down the elevators and they were totally isolated except for this little camera. Those who had families, the kids were homeschooled. They weren't off somewhere else. And so here were family units, cats walking through the screens and kids sitting on laps. And we never thought to say, how are people managing and juggling in this time of uncertainty, in this time where we aren't in the offices and we can't feel the emotional energy through a Zoom lens as well as you can visually. A good example of that would be, we used to have our executive meetings. There'd be 12 of us around the boardroom. And instinctively, I knew whether there was a positive energy or a negative energy. I knew who was going to be speaking next, even before they said it. And you could see the room. Everybody started to look over at Joe because Joe was going to talk. You can't get that on a Zoom because people are looking at their email and multitasking, or they're offline. So what COVID did was it robbed people of that connectivity. It robbed people of the opportunity to build leaderships that were already people leadership skills that were already not that sound. And all of a sudden, they now have to think about, well, how's this person managing? I don't have time to worry about you. I have to learn all this technology as well as learning how to work remotely with clients, with, multiple different disciplines, as well as my staff. So if anything, it is a struggle. And McLean and Company do a survey every year, and I like to find out what the top 3 things this human resources company is saying that human resources professionals, executives are working on. And in the last 2 years, developing leadership has been number 1, both in 2025 and 2026. And even during COVID, the first few years post-COVID, that leadership development jumped. There's a study that said the average age is probably about 6 or 7 years old now. The average age of a leadership of a person becoming a leader, a first line manager, 36 years of age. I'm sure it's different now because there are more people retiring, so more opportunities for younger and younger people. But that study said the average age for somebody to become a manager was 36. The average age that a manager got some kind of training related to people, 40. That is 4 years of trial and error, figuring out how to connect with people. And throughout university, public school, we never were taught how to play nice in the sandbox. We were never told how to, well, you're working on a project, make sure you get along. And I remember in university, well, we deserved an A and so did not pull their weight. They should get a C-. That was our way of dealing with team building. We cut the poison out and we worked without that person. So we have not, in the history of education, in the history of life, taught people how to manage people. So how do we expect? And so today we're still feeling that stresses, and it makes sense for people who want to be better leaders, who don't want to feel like they're always struggling. They're saying things and, why doesn't so-and-so do what I want them to do? Why doesn't so-and-so do a better job? Oftentimes we're creating a negative outcome for them. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you make somebody feel this small, are they going to be able to do the amount of effective, efficient work that they did 3 years ago when they were the expert of this, but you basically downgraded their expertise to now feeling, I can't even do this right anymore. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of not doing things right. So leaders struggle with, well, how do I get them to do this? What am I doing? Maybe they don't even think, what am I doing? Why is this not happening? Leaders who are more self-aware, leaders who are trying to improve all of their abilities, the technical, the connection with clients, the project management skills, and the people leadership skills, those that help motivate, guide, mentor, nurture, to make people feel more valued, more a sense of belonging. And when people feel they belong, they feel a pride to do better and to be rewarded, even small ways of saying, that was a great job you did, or even to be told honestly, this is what you're doing well. And if you could just do this a little bit better, then that would just add to what you're doing. These are the ways to help nurture people in a better way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree and hear you when we talk about development of leaders in an organization. And there's enough research and data to tell us, to your point, that developing leaders is not where most of our investment when it comes to growth development goes. Having said that, I also feel that, to your point that you made earlier, that sometimes we promote people in leadership roles who are not wired or not aspiring to be people leaders in the first place. Uh,
Mhm.
Organizations are not structured, and we don't show clear paths to people that you don't have to be recognized for the value that you contribute to the organization by becoming a people leader. There are other paths for you in the organization as well. So I feel like development of existing cohort of leaders will go only so far because we have a mix of people in that cohort where people who are naturally wired and aspire to be people leaders who will benefit a lot from development. But then there are also people who we've pushed into those roles because we have no other way to promote them or recognize them in organizational ecosystem, which I feel will not serve us if we continue on this path. And this is the time for HR leadership, especially, to think about how do we promote, how do we grow, how do we develop our talent differently in organization and not incentivize people leadership as the only growth path.
And that is such a bang on question, right? And everybody who thinks, well, the only way I can get promoted is to be, a project manager, but that means I have to lead people. And I really don't want to lead people, but this is how I have to do it. And when my husband and I had our engineering company, we thought, yeah, why are we promoting people who technically they're a whiz, they're so strong, but that's their forte. People they're not comfortable with, or they don't do it well, right? There's two kinds of leaders in that genre. And my husband said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to create two streams. We're going to create a technical stream where you can still be a VP who specializes in transportation, underground tunneling, like a very special niche. And then we're going to have people who can be project managers and lead. And we followed in engineering, there's an A to F scale of how you move from A being a new grad to F being, an executive level. And we said, in a technical stream, you are the author of books, you speak on subject matter, and you are project manager for that specialization. You manage the and there is a people manager that manages everything, including the people, right? So this really opens the door to saying there is a career ladder for me. And wherever I've gone to organizations where there may be that ability, I encourage people to think, is there a technical stream that allows people to be promoted for their technical knowledge and those that are, people that can be people nurturing type to do that? So that's a great question. And maybe this is a good time for me to introduce my concept of RevUp. As my husband and I grew our company, we wanted to create a place where people love what they do, love where they work, right? So sort of novel. And this is why we did the technical stream and the managerial stream. And years later, when we sold the business, I thought, well, how did we create such a special place that actually people said, this is a place where I feel like I can grow and I feel like I love my community of coworkers. And we became recognized by Best Workplaces in Canada, top 10 twice, right? And years later, when I started my own company, Peoplebright, I thought, what did we do that can articulate that in a way that people will understand? And I came up with the concept of RevUp. Hence, the name of my company is RevUp, is Peoplebright. And what we do is we rev up potential, we rev up leadership, we rev up confidence, communication, etc. And RevUp is an acronym for 5 things that we did that created that culture of we. So number 1, treat people with respect. And that's the way they want to be treated, not the way you think they should be treated, because that's what would be respect to you, is understanding what is respectful in my mind. Second, equality. And that is treating everybody equally important. Your job is equally important as my job, as anybody in this organization, because without you playing this role to the best of your ability, our team could flounder. We wouldn't win a proposal because something you did that was so important for you to do well, we lost the bid because of that. So equality. Then V is for valued. This is where you make people feel important, that what they're doing is important to the work that you're doing, the organization, and these are the perks that you give people as well. Then up. So you're revving up. The up stands for U is for uniqueness. Each one of us is unique. Some people are people, and they make great project managers, and others are so technically expert. Without their skill and expertise, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So understanding that each of us has different strengths and valuing that and looking at that uniqueness and helping nurture that. And then when you understand people's uniqueness, you tap into that P, potential. So when you have a rev up mindset, you can create a we culture. You can motivate and uplift people, make them feel valued, want to stay, and have a sense of pride in belonging.
I love it. I love it. And when you help organizations adopt this mindset of RevUp, what are like where do people struggle to adopt this into their ecosystem? Because if I look at it from my lens, I'm like, this is such a powerful framework and mindset to look at people. And this helps automatically, my brain goes that everything in my ecosystem that's currently supporting people needs to be overhauled to support that culture of RevUp or mindset of RevUp, because how we performance manage, how we promote, how we incentivize, everything changes and has to be redone.
And it's not major. It can be minor tweaks. It's mental mindset. When I talk about rev up, if we all adopt a rev up mindset, this is what equality is about. This is what inclusivity is about. Because if I respect you, I'm trying to think about you as a person and include you. When I value you, I am uplifting you. All of this mindset. So it isn't strategically writing a plan for diversity and having teams that talk about diversity. It's every day. If we all treat each other and value each other, this is what equity is, inequality and a we culture is about. So it does take a little bit of a mindset shift, but it is in the communication. It is in the communication. And it was a joy to watch as our company kept growing. And we hired people who basically were ambassadors of our value system. And we talked about it when you became a guest on my talk show, that it is about understanding that we mentality and embracing people to be of that mindset. And I never realized that when we were creating this fundamental foundation, we said, wouldn't it be nice to have a place where people love what they do, love where they work? So to do that, you got to make sure people that you hire aren't a commodity, that they have value for an organization, that they know what that value is. And that slowly over time, we realized that, oh my God, these people that are part of our team are all ambassadors of this belief. I mean, we didn't call it Rev Up. We were too busy building our organization to say, hey, what's this that we're doing? It was only when I started my own company, I thought, well, how do I articulate it for other people? So not everybody embraces it, but individuals can embrace that. One of my people that I mentored when she was taking her HR designation courses for designation, and I volunteered to be a mentor, and I got self-selected with her. I saw a young bright light, and later on we kept in touch after the program officially ended after a year, but we just stayed in touch. And then at one point when my company was growing, I hired her because she said, I'm tired of not being recognized at this company and I want to do more. And I go, I see. Do you want to come work for me? Because I could really use somebody. And fast forward, she worked through COVID with me, and then she was remotely working in Montreal at the time. And since then, she got married, had a family, and now she's being head of her HR. And she said, Hilda, I'm at the crossroads. I need to chat. And we chatted because she was just coming back from mat leave. I didn't realize she had just come back. And we had to talk about, how do I balance this? A career, motherhood. I still have these goals that I want to do. And then we texted each other. Yeah, that was so great. Great to catch up. And then she wrote, you're inspirational. Right. And I think that's what a leader should help do. We should help inspire that younger generation who want to come someday, lead, but sometimes even work and be in a place where you feel like you can go home and have a nice family life instead of feeling stressed from work and going back to that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean to be the whole culture, but it can be if people say, I like this. And if I treat my fellow workers, if I treat my team with this mindset that I have, I can create a much better working environment for myself and my team.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so relevant in today's context because what we see in news every day is so and so companies laying off. So we don't hear the organizations paying as much emphasis on people who they should right now as much as they're paying on we're introducing this technology, this is the productivity play or this is the efficiency play. And I love the fact that rev up is a mindset that can happen at an individual level because each one of us can be a leader in an organization. It's not tied to a leadership title. And eventually, with the right mindset, it can have a snowball effect. And eventually, people will start thinking about making the right choices and right judgment calls when people and machines are in the equation, same equation.
And I think this is the difficulty right now. It is an AI world and people are very, very scared and uncertain. And I think leaders as well, because they don't know
Yeah.
what this means. And does that mean that this is going to disrupt my ability to lead people? Because now they don't need me. They don't need my knowledge. That's not true. They still need your knowledge and AI still needs your knowledge. I realized when I'm, using AI and I recognize through my wrap up for 2025 that I was an early adopter and now I'm using it almost as a strategic advisor because that's where I am at my journey. And it reminded me of something my husband did when he was younger. He's an engineer, transportation, and he was planning a highway. And it never flood. Well, it does flood, but sometimes it doesn't flood because of the way you make the curve. And he followed the book. He put them every, I don't know, 100 meters. You put a sewer, and he drew them all. And his supervisor looked at my husband's drawing, which he did for 2 to 3 days. I see. Okay, well, we don't need those. We need them here, 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 and here. And my husband said, so I worked on this for 2 to 3 days and you look at it and you tell me in less than 5 minute meeting that I need to redraw this now and put them here, here, and here. Why did I do that? And he said, you did that so you would learn what the right way is by the rules and then what the practical way is. So when I was thinking about AI, I was thinking we are learning to with our experience, we've learned how to do it the intuitive way, the fast way, the judgment way. But when you're learning, you need to understand the fundamentals so that when you eyeball it, you can say, well, that's not right. It doesn't take 200 engines to pull 40 cars. That's a true story. My husband was a TA and somebody did his problem set. And he said, you need 240 engines to pull these 40 cars up this, and the student wrote, I know this is wrong, but I don't know why. But my point being is that AI can truly not replace you because what they need, they give you the data, they give you the interpretation, but you in your knowledge, in your wisdom, in your expertise, look at that and say, that makes sense, or that doesn't look right. And you'll disregard that, right?
Yeah.
AI can't disregard stuff for you. You need to tell them, no, this is not right. And I've told that. I said, you are exasperating me because you're not getting the message. I'm sorry, I do have limitations. Well, I said, tell me what the limitations are. Don't waste my time. And I said, I'm talking to a machine, Hilda. You're talking to a machine. What I'm trying to say to you is AI will not replace you because you have the knowledge and judgment to interpret that this may be, wow, this is a really great idea. I wish I thought of it. Or no, this will not work. And I know that. So thank you very much, AI. That idea is out the garbage.
I think you're spot on, Hilda, and I agree with you. Like AI can augment us, AI can take away things that we don't like to do, which are black and white, do it for us. But the judgment call, the human judgment still stays with the human, at least for the timing till we have what they call super intelligence, which is more intelligent than us and we don't know how it's operating, then it's a different story. Whether it happens in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right now it's a guess game for everybody. But for the foreseeable future, I think humans, especially human leadership and the knowledge and the wisdom, is going to be the key differentiator for organizations. Having said that, how do you see the future of leadership when leaders, and this is not something that we prepared for, Hilda, but I'm really curious to hear your perspective on it, because we're talking about leaders managing people and the struggles leaders have managing people. But the future looks like, with agents in the mix, leaders will have to manage humans and machines that are operating autonomously as AI agents. What kind of pressure situation does that put the leaders in? Like, what should they be rethinking in their leadership capability to prepare themselves for that future?
So I like to think about small steps, right? If you think, my God, this is going to happen someday, you will just, you'll just shrivel up thinking it's an insurmountable task, right? So if we start to embrace things in small steps and we exercise that to gain confidence and a little bit more confidence and a little bit more confidence, these will come. So that's the short answer. But to prepare for the future, I think the more we become self-aware, the stronger we will be in knowing ourselves and how to show up as our most confident self. And I talked about uniqueness, and that word is so key. If you understand who you are, your uniqueness, your strengths and your gifts, this will give you the confidence to evolve and embrace whatever is coming. I think there'll always be that those people that survive and embrace the change will be stronger leaders. It's not, don't think of it as a revolution, think of it as an evolution. So get comfortable with change. I always thought when I was younger and life got so busy, okay, well, once we finish this project, we'll be able to relax. And I think 3 years of doing one more project and growing and being challenged, I thought, Diane, this is never going to change, right? There'll always be another thing that we're doing that keeps us busy, that makes us grow, that makes us change. And so I think I learned early that life is evolving and just take each change as it comes. And perhaps I can give you an analogy of those small steps. When I was younger, I wanted to teach. And so those first few years, I started my career as a nurse. And so I started to gain experience, every bit of experience that I could. Like many energetic young people, they want to get as much experience to figure it out. And I wanted to teach. I started teaching, and I started teaching to nursing on the floor. So I taught to maybe 7 nurses who had 20, 30 minutes to give them something of support. And so oftentimes that was some exotic disease on the floor that was a patient. So I would do the research on the disease, and then what kind of nursing care, what kind of things should we be watching out for? How do we care for them? And of course, the first few times I went up on the floor, my heart is palpitating, my gut is churning. Then I would just come up to the floor, and I'd be talking, and I got very comfortable at 7. And then I got comfortable at 25, and then I got comfortable at 50. And then I was speaking at an international conference, and if you told me, oh, guess what? Next month you're going to be doing that. And I was a new grad, like I wouldn't have slept. Right. So we grow by taking those little challenges, and you get comfortable at it, and you just keep growing. And you never really stop saying, oh, well, I'm done. I'm comfortable. We don't need to grow anymore. You reflect back on your life in the mirror and you say, all of those little things that I have evolved and gotten comfortable in, those don't scare me anymore. This does, but I'm willing to try. So whatever comes, I believe that AI, generative 10.0, whatever they want to call it from there, will give us the freedom to use it in effective manner. And one should never lose sight of the human connection. I think that became very, very evident when we opened the doors and saw the light and missed people, missed that human connection, that first hug that you had when you hadn't seen somebody that you'd been networking with for 3 years on Zoom calls, or realizing, I feel like I know you so well, but this is the first time we've actually physically been in the same room together. So I think if anything, what that episode taught us was human touch, that all of us need that. Even those people who are not the people persons, they still missed it. And it's very interesting because some people will say, I missed it in my own way. And that own way could be, I still want to come to work. I still want to see people, but I want to pick and choose when I talk to that one person or when I go to the lunchroom and have lunch with people. Some days I want to be in my office and not working. Each one of us chooses human connection in a different way. And that's what uniqueness is about. And I'll mention that the more you become self-aware, take those assessment tools, learn to discover who you really are. I'm a fascination certified advisor, and I use the fascination tool because when I created the RevUp concept, I thought, how will I teach people in a tangible way about uniqueness? I mean, we can say that you're unique, I'm unique, and we need to learn about people in order to understand their uniqueness. But I needed a much more quantifiable versus a qualitative way to do that. And of all the assessment tools that I've ever done, the one that really resonated me was how to fascinate. The Fascinate tool does, is it looks at how people see you at your best when you communicate. The assessment tool is a research-based tool, and over 1 million people have taken it. What it says to you is that there are 7 different languages. Some people think outside of the box. They're innovatives. Some people are relationship builders. They are the passion people. There are the power people who are very decisive. The alert people are the attention to details. Those are the ones you want on your project team to make sure all those things you need in your project are covered. And the risks. What if it rains? What if there's a bug that happens in the software? You want that person who's an alert attention to detail to think of all those possible risks, to have contingency plans for them, as well as a plan for the main things. So there are 7 different languages: trust, mystique, and all of these languages help you understand, how do I naturally and instinctively communicate with others at my best? And when I do, I feel confident, I exude confidence, I create relationships. So when I do my leadership training, I teach people how they fascinate. So they know I'm a trust person, or I'm a person who has high standards of excellence and continuously improve. And this is my strength that I bring to the team, to the group. And by learning these, we then can be better leaders. We can be better team members, because I do it for teams as well. So that to me is, the more you as an individual, whether you're a leader or a potential leader, or a person who wants to be a good team member, the more we understand who we are, the easier it is to communicate, to be happy in who we are, and to discover what our strengths are and where our strengths lie.
Yeah, I love that. I had not heard about this tool and framework before. So that's a very, very fascinating topic. And I will, after our conversation, go do deeper research on that. But I also wanted to zoom into something that is like the origin of this conversation about this framework or this tool, discovery tool that you talk about, Fascinate Me, right? Fascinate Me? That's what
How
it's
to
called?
fascinate.
How to
How to
fascinate.
fascinate.
Yeah. We talk about self awareness. I'm curious, Hilda, now that you've shed the light on how you run this program and you support people with their own self awareness and growth and development. Self awareness is a very, it's not easy for everybody to sit with themselves, to unpack, uncover, and actually work on themselves. So, what's your perspective on, like, yes, I'm gonna go through an assessment and I'm gonna learn more about me, but do people stop there, or do they actually take it to the next level and start integrating that knowledge that they have acquired through these different diagnostic tools?
I think certain people have a desire to be self-aware, and then certain people are, particularly, we call them mystiques. They are people that listen and they're quiet, or some people will say they're introverts. But it's very interesting. The more I work with Fascinate and help people, coach them and guide them, the more I appreciate how all of us are unique in our own ways. And by discovering who you truly are, it validates who you are, and then you can walk in your own space. I remember I've done multiple trainings, and I remember this one particular training. These were accountants, so sometimes they're a little bit more reserved. Some are, some aren't. And they started using the tool, and they were a network of accountants who were entrepreneurs, and they knew each other through the years. And they began to say, yeah, that's who you are. That you are like that. You are a person that's attention to detail. You're an out of the box creative thinker, right? And they started using the language with each other. And so this is, I think, the beauty of it. It's written in everyday language. So it's not some kind of, interpretive kind of thing, over interpretive. And it's done in a very positive way. And I can remember this one team, they hired me. They were new graduates, couple of years out of school, and they were helping build this startup company. So she said, Hilda, I want to teach them everything from time management. Like, it was leadership 101 for new leaders. And she said, I want them to have 5 hours of coaching. I said, well, allow me to do this Fascinate, because it will give me more intense coaching abilities rather than spending two sessions learning about each other. I can dive in right away. And this one person was an introvert. She was a mystique, and she couldn't see how she was going to be a leader. And the office manager was power. She was very decisive, very alert, organized. So she was a true office manager making things run. And she thought, no, I can't be like her. That's not who I am. And when I interpret her thing, I don't remember the other ones, but she was mystique, the language of listening, and a couple of other things. And once we uncovered her Fascinate and learned a little bit more about who she was, she said, that's me. That's who I am. And then she said at the end of our first hour, she says, I can be the leader that I want to be on my own terms. And I'm thinking, see, like, you think that a person who's mystique, oh, well, I can't lead because I'm too quiet. No, she knew she could lead on her own terms. She didn't have to be an extrovert. She didn't have to be a people connector if that wasn't her forte. She knew now her strengths, and she was confident in the leadership. So this is what happens. The reluctant people suddenly say, yeah, that's pretty accurate of me. And then the next time we spend a little bit more time, that is so good. Now I know that I can be this way. I understand all of my languages, from the most comfortable, what I call superpowers, to what we call dormant. See, the language isn't, oh, here's your weaknesses. You're dormant. It's a little bit sleepy. It's not that you don't know how to use it, but if you use it, you'll have to concentrate on using it. It takes so much energy, and it's draining. So don't get a job in that area. Get a job in your super strengths. And let yourself shine and light up. And that's my whole premise is, I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to help people be that best version of themselves. So the more you as a leader can support and guide that person, the better and bigger they will grow. And when I reflect back on my husband and I and the company that we've created and the people's lives we've touched, it's hearing stories like, because of you, this is my husband now, because of you now, whenever I hire people, I say quality. You need to make sure everything you do is quality. And her team member said, well, why? We're just the government, so we can, we don't have to be quality. No, you need to do this because that is your signature. That's a mark of what we're doing for, the community that we serve. That's a mark on you, and it's a mark on me of being quality driven. And she said, I learned that lesson from Tyrone, my husband. I learned that from him. So everything you do for the people whose lives you touch, you make an impression, good or bad. And I'm saying, make it good, make a difference in the lives of people, because they're going on to touch other people. And we can have this ripple effect. And it starts with balancing things. And statistically, for those skeptics out there, those companies that focus on profit, and say, oh yeah, we do 2-3 times, but people is low. The matrix model, there's people and profit. Those low profit, low people, they'll be bankrupt in no time. Those people that are profit but low on people, yeah, they'll make healthy gains 3 times, but their turnover is high. People are not engaged. This is not a recipe for success. Those people that look at profit and people, that's 5 times, 7 times profit and revenue. And these are statistics that can be found in Harvard Business Review, Financial Times. When you focus on people and profit, that is the recipe for success. That's the upper right quadrant of the matrix, not the lower right quadrant of the matrix. So obviously, I'm very passionate about making sure people and profit are the recipe.
I love that. And I am going to reach out to you after the podcast to see if you can do the Fascinate diagnostic on me. But as we wrap up our conversation, which I feel like we should have another hour of, because there's so much for me to pull from your lived experience and wisdom, and it's so relevant and beneficial for the listeners today. But for today, as we wrap up our conversation, Hilda, what would be your advice that you would offer to leaders who are navigating this uncertainty and change so that they can do what they're supposed to do with care and integrity?
So you use the word supposed to do. And when you're supposed to do something, you're forcing somebody. So I want people to reflect on who they are, where they want to be. And when you know that, do it with passion. And I don't mean being passionate, but love what you do, love where you work. So if you want to be a leader, what kind of leader that you want to be? People-centric doesn't mean that I'm friendly with everybody. People-centric means I care about people. And even the mystiques care about people in their own way. So find your own way, find your superpowers, find your super strength, and own that. And you'll find when you combine your own self-awareness of who you are instinctually with something that you want to do, this is the recipe for your career success, your enjoyment of life. And perhaps when you do that, think of the people that you are impacting in your life and make a difference.
Wow, that is such a powerful note to end our conversation on. And what really stood out to me in this conversation today with you is that leadership hasn't fundamentally changed, but the conditions around it have. And the need for trust, for clarity, for human connection hasn't gone away. If anything, I think it's become more important in the world that we are living through today. And what's different now is the pressure the leaders feel and the responsibility to be more intentional about where they focus their time, energy, and judgment. So, your insights remind us, Hilda, that strong leadership isn't about doing more, it's about protecting what matters most, even as everything else evolves. So, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and such a thoughtful and grounded conversation.
Thank you for having me. I always like to have great conversations with people who really help stimulate thoughts. And I hope that, I'm sure that this has stimulated a lot of different thinking for people as they move into the next steps of their life and their careers.
I am sure it did. And it did for me for sure. So I'm going to reach out to you after this. And to everyone listening, I hope this gave you the moment to pause, to reflect, and maybe be a little kinder to yourself as a leader as well. These are interesting times, and we need each other to support each other through this journey.